morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Donna, your host of Dead to Rights, the podcast, and owner and publisher of Carrick Publishing. I'm here today on behalf of the Mesdames of Mayhem to introduce you to Madona Skaff, who you may well already be familiar with. And she is the author of Journey of a Thousand Steps, Death by Association, and Shifting Trust, the three novels you can see on the wall behind Madonna there. And good morning, Madonna. How are you?
Well, good morning. I'm doing quite well. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. Madonna has a story being featured in our 5th Mesdames of Mayhem anthology, in the Spirit of 13, and the story is titled Moving On, and it features a repeat character who I really came to love, the great Leonard. And I like what you've done with the great Leonard. You've done something different with him. For anyone who hasn't read the previous story, The Great Leonard, he was a con artist who pretended to be a psychic. And in the process of being found out and caught out, he actually discovered he really did have psychic powers. So tell us what you've done with him morally for this next story.
Well, in this story, it opens with him deciding that no, he's had enough of this, the scam artist life, and he decides to go straight. And he decides to open a PI business, to become a private investigator, figuring, well, it's no problem with the psychic abilities. It should help him. And he's been trying for like 2 months. He's had one little teeny tiny case, which I won't tell you about because it's sort of funnier to read it as he reveals the big case that he worked on. And so in this case, in this situation, he's made one friend, and he's moved to live in the big city, and he's made one friend. And, this friend is trying to tell him, well, maybe you should start thinking of clients as like marks, look for them that way. He says, well, I don't want to fall into old habits. And so, so as a result, he winds up just trying to, stay straight, and he does actually.
He's a comedic figure, isn't he? He's a bit of a comedic figure.
Yeah. He's got all these little one-liners type of thing, and so in this case, though, he gets drawn back into a new case, which is kind of what he wants. It's not a paying job, of course, because he's doing it for a friend. And so again, he's trying to solve a murder, but as usual, the simple case is not so simple, and his decisions aren't always straightforward.
That's right. That's right. Very true. Very true. Now, I want to talk about your novels because you've got 3 in your series with your latest book, Shifting Trust, and they feature an amateur sleuth by the name of Naya, who has a very important factor in her life that impacts on her ability to. She was a marathon runner. And due to I believe it was an injury, she discovered something about herself. Please tell us.
Okay, well, actually, I am working on this 3rd book. Shifting Trust is actually a standalone, and it's a science fiction book. And it's set about 25 years into the future, and where Tyler Demir is an ex-RCMP officer, and he ignores military orders and decides to go on his own to rescue a scientist who's been kidnapped in England. And so that's actually a standalone that was released last fall, like 2021. So the Naya Investigates series, the first book is Journey of a Thousand Steps. And she's a marathon runner. She does that in her spare time. She's also a computer security specialist. And so she's about 5 kilometers from the end of her marathon at the opening of the book. And then she suddenly, becomes unconscious. When she comes to, she discovers that she's been disabled by MS. So she's a little bit, doesn't want anyone to see her, hides away at home and tries to recover in peace and figures that's it, her life is over, until a friend of hers disappears. So while she's still recovering, she forces herself out of the house to go find her friend. And so I'm not going to say too much more about that, whether she finds her or not. And in the second book, Death by Association, she's sworn that her sleuthing days are over, and she's promised everyone, because the last time it was rather dangerous, almost lost her life on more than one occasion. And so in this case, of course, she gets drawn into a case against her will, sort of. And this time it's a serial killer that she's on trying to find, but she doesn't realize they're also tracking her. So that's the second. And I am working on a third book. I've gone through the first draft already. I'm in the second draft. And this time, just to be fun, she decided to work on a cold case murder. So, but again,
Okay, very
the
good.
whole
Just to
tendrils
round
from,
out her resume.
oh, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a working title for the third one?
Um, oh, shoot. Yeah, I do actually. It's just a word. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I don't remember it. It's something. Oh, a cold fact of life. There we go.
A cold fact of life. Okay, very good.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
working title. So that may not be the final, but that's
Yeah,
what
that's
we're banking on right now. Yeah.
yeah. I'm hoping to be able to continue with that title because it sort of does seem to fit. But we'll work on
Now
this.
you've got a connection to the particular disability that Naya has. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that? If I'm not putting
Yeah.
you too much on the spot.
Oh no, I'm actually quite open about it, so it's not a problem. Because I mean, how it all started is I've been writing all my life. I've had several short stories published, and I've always wanted to write a novel, like publish a novel. So after so many years of trying, people, I'd sometimes get nice comments about the novels, but they're always rejected. And then when I guess, well, about 10 years ago or so, I started having trouble with my back. And it took quite a while to figure it out, about 2 to 3 years, and we discovered that I have MS. And then I had an MS attack, actually. It wasn't as severe as Naya's. She was actually paralyzed and couldn't move and couldn't talk for about a day or two. And it took her quite a while to recover. And so I had an attack and I really was unable to walk around. I was actually in a wheelchair for a little while, just for a few weeks. And then I started thinking to myself, well, they always say, write what you know. And I thought, well,
Yes.
okay, like I've written about killers and, science fiction aliens. And I thought, well, why not? Let's give this a try. And it sort of came from various ideas, and finally I settled into the journey of 1,000 steps. I figured I would start from the beginning of her attack and develop her, sort of kind of paralleling my journey, though I've never actually investigated anything.
It was really well received, and I wonder if your personal passion going into it made the difference that got you over the edge.
I think so, because I mean, when I was trying to write it, I was trying to be very careful not to be like up on a soapbox, and I wanted to talk
Yes.
about, I want to talk about the symptoms, but I mean, those are visual symptoms. It's the internal stuff that you don't really,
Yeah.
it's like it took me a while before I was sort of breaking the news to friends, and I started with
Yes.
family and close friends, and it was just sort of hard to talk about at first.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, maybe I'll put that into her. And I've had actually a few people that have commented, people that know me and actually people that don't know me, and they've commented that they liked the way I did it. I didn't preach at people. It wasn't like, hey, this is how tough life is. Yeah, life is
Yeah.
tough, but you got to be stubborn. And I mean, I think that's the
Yeah,
one thing
you do have
we
to be
are.
stubborn. I like that word. That is the word
Yeah,
for it.
because
Absolutely.
both of us
And
are
it's
very
funny.
stubborn.
Yes, I was speaking with another of the Mesdames the other day for this series, and she was commenting on a social issue in her upcoming story as well. And one of the things that I found remarkable about her story was it was a very serious social issue, but she managed to tell the story without preaching and leave the conclusions to the reader to draw, by just telling a good story. And I think that's kind of what you're trying to hit the nail on the head with, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I know they say writing is sort of like therapy and stuff. And, if you're just writing to be, for a cathartic experience, it's one thing. But like in my case, what I was doing, I was writing and I was trying to create a story, create a different character. Like, of course, similar to me in some ways. As I said, we're both stubborn, don't want to give up. But in other ways, like she's, I think, braver than me. But although if I was met with a killer, we'll see what happens, And so I think that's why it didn't come out preachy. Maybe both our cases, because we're concentrating more on creating a story rather than
Creating a
just
story and
relating.
entertaining the reader
Yeah,
and letting them
yeah.
follow the flow of the story. Yeah,
Yeah, rather
exactly.
than just explaining how I felt or, like just to create a world.
Exactly. And I think you've done a brilliant job, both with your
Oh,
series. I haven't read your new book, Shifting Trust, yet, So we'll have
Yeah.
to put that on the reading list, definitely. And you said that was really more of a
Well, it's a science fiction book. It's set, but in the
Mhm.
near future, so it's not like totally
not totally
totally
out there.
alien.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's only about 25 years into the future, so the technology has changed a little bit, but not really that much. And the main thing with this story is I guess it's the personal journey, because the main character, he's sort of, because he was in the RCMP, and then he had a case where he was working undercover and a lot of people were killed. So he started a little shell shock that way. And
Mhm.
so working for this nanotechnology company, he thought, well, he's just second in command of security. He doesn't have lives depending on him for every
Yes.
decision he makes. And then one thing after another, he winds up being the only one that does go after to find the scientists. And again, lives are depending on him. So
Mhm.
it's sort of a
Mhm.
personal journey that way, more than there's a lot of action and suspense and probably some violence and stuff.
Quite different from your shorts featuring the great Leonard, which tend to be kind of humorous. I enjoy the humor in them. They're terrific.
Oh yeah,
In
yeah. I mean,
this,
I have.
Madonna, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just saying I had a really great time with the great Leonard, and when I was finishing up with him, I was deciding, well, I've got to try to come up with some other story, and I was coming up with a few things. And then when this anthology came along, I thought, oh, perfect! I've got a good excuse to finish the story. It's not just a labor of
Yes.
love.
Yes, exactly. And that is going to appear. It's called Moving On by Madona Skaff, and it is going to appear in the Spirit of 13 by the Mesdames of Mayhem, coming out this fall 2022. And we can't wait to get
Right.
out there and share this with everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today, Madonna. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Well, it's great seeing you too, Donna. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A dusty road, a man alone. His vital signs go on hold. And I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides